involvement and participation is just as starts to become contagious, just as apathy and cowardice is often contagious, or muting and discouraging. So we mustn't give up hope. Whew. Yes, Miss. Because you put two hands up and you're wiggling them. Yes. Oh, okay.
How can we use what you said tonight?
I thought I'd call on some women because the men are almost always up there with the first questions and all questions. But you were just simply a subterfuge for a male. You see that? And I'm never going to fall for a dame's trick again. Go ahead.
How can we use what you have said tonight to overcome the apathy that we encounter and the denial that we encounter when we try to bring this information down to people, not only what the Christic Institute is doing, but what, in general, what our government is doing to us?
Well, as I've said a lot of times, apathy is often a psychological defense for powerlessness, and people feel powerless, and so they turn off. Incredulity, I don't know, I must be hitting, of course I do hit very selective audiences and such, but I find that really there seems to be more demand than supply, and that people are really hungry for some kind of understanding about how things are going, and if you can lay things out and put it together in a clear, reasonably concise way, they do respond very much so. I think that's how I get the kinds of responses I get. It can't be any brilliance or anything. It's just that I think there's a predispositional hunger. And in the face of such lies, C. Wright Mills once said, in the face of such misinformation, some simple facts and simple honest analysis becomes a radical act. And it can be a liberating act. Somebody says, oh my gosh, I remember myself going through that thing. Oh my gosh, the day I realized that Vietnam was not a mistake. I said, oh my gosh, it isn't a mistake. These people really want this war, and they have very real rational reasons for it. Wow. Well, once you know that, then you can't go back to saying, isn't they foolish, aren't they this, aren't they silly, and all that. So it's hard, though. It certainly is hard, because what we're facing is NBC and Bob Hope entertaining the troops and a thousand other, which is all propaganda. Did you see that show, by the way? It was amazing. If you want to see propaganda films, forget Nuremberg. Forget the Nuremberg rally film. They always show it in college campuses, the Nazi film that woman, Hitler's friend, made. I forget her name. But and they want to show these big propaganda things. Man, you want to see it. You just watch Bob Hope entertaining the troops, and he brings on that Russian emigre Smirnov, who makes jokes about how big and fat Russian women are, and how what communism is this and that, and here we are on the frontiers of freedom and all that, and you see all these creamy-faced 19-year-old kids then they're going yay and high-fiving each other and yay and yeah, it's not easy, man. It gets discouraging. Well, what you could do is you can write up a discouragement list, and then you can write up an encouragement list, because there are also other things that are happening that are encouraging. There are people who are fighting back. There are people who refuse to tolerate racism and anti-Semitism, and they speak out vigorously and forcefully. In 1925, in the town I live in now, a little town you might have heard of, Washington, D.C., in 1925, the Ku Klux Klan came into town, and the Washington Post ran a photo of 25,000 Klansmen marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, each one of them with an American flag in their Klan garb. The masks were optional, and they're marching like this. And the blurb under the picture was itself kind of neutral or reinforcing. Said the Klan out in force, marching in proud formation, or something. It was kind of almost positively framed. They reproduced the picture and the blurb under it, and they said this is 1925. Well, in 1981 or 2, the Klan came into town again, and there were 11 of them. And not 25,000, 11. And there were 5,000 counter-demonstrators who kicked their ass real good, really and the police had to get them back on a bus and send them out. By the way, that's when the media stopped giving so much media attention to the Klan. When they began to see how it was being more effective in activating anti-Klan sentiment than Klan, that the Klansmen don't get, although now it's coming back again with the skinheads and all those guys. But we have to look at that. We have to look at the other kinds of gains we made. We have to look at the fact that a basically profoundly dishonest government, a class government, a patriarchal racist government, is forced at times to make certain concessions to democratic forces. It has to, a part of it has to investigate another part of it, to tell you that they're legitimate and they're honest and all that. And in trying to maintain those appearances of honesty, they get caught up in the process of honesty, and some things do get out, And so these becomes points of vulnerability whereby we can keep pressing forward and pushing and fighting. I'm really tired. I think I'm going to just take. How about just one more question? Okay.
Since hearing about the Chris Gibson case, I've been so outraged. I felt like I want to march into the White House myself and make a citizen's arrest of George Bush. I want to rise up and throw these guys out. But there's a sense of paranoia to stand up and say this. And I really admire that somebody that you can consistently stand up and do this. And the idea of direct action is really appealing to me. Maybe some words of encouragement for individuals to do some action to bring attention to these issues without working. It's like I'm getting overwrought right now just thinking about it. To temper that emotion.
Well, the way to do that is to work with others. Get into some organization and work with others on that. I did some direct action just a few months ago, just before I left Washington in the middle of winter. We all got arrested, about 25 of us, trade unionists mostly. All trade unions. I qualify because I'm a member of the National Writers Union, so they took me along. We got arrested right in front of the White House. You can't get in and make a citizen's arrest, but we blocked the driveway, and all the media, all the White House, the whole White House corps were in the White House. Word got out that there were these crazies outside blocking the White House gate. They all come running out with all the cameras, so we got all this press coverage by them, but none of it appeared. I think the local media picked up, and we got about a half a split second on the air. But all that counts. All those things count. All those things reach some other people and press, even if it's just the cops who are arresting you, and you start talking with them and all that. So if you really feel now's the time for activism, I absolutely agree with you. Now's the time for activism. And there's got to be more of it, more direct confrontations and demonstrations and such. And maybe we have to really mobilize our numbers and escalate that activism. Peaceful legal activism, I'm not talking about anything else. Anything beyond that is venturistic and counterproductive at this stage of struggle. I tell you, I got to stop, folks. Thank you very much.
Right. One final word on resources. For those who may have missed it, by the way, the LA Reader has become a rather interesting little newspaper. Last week's issue had a big article about the Parenti acquittal. The week prior to that had an article about the CIA raiding the S&Ls. That's a story that has a lot of other ramifications. It's not just the CIA, it's the off-the-shelf crowd that we're dealing with that are involved with the S&L failure. So that one's going to hit. Feel free to browse. There's a brand new tape over here by Sheehan that you haven't seen. There are lots of Michael's books. The next forum will be in September. We'll let you know.
I want to say one last thing for the people who want to be active. There is a coalition on Wednesday mornings that we meet at the Federal Building downtown, and we either just stand in vigil or we do practice CD. Every single Wednesday from 8 to 9 will definitely be a vigil. There will be once a month there will be a CD. So please join us. If you want to be active, that's one way.
And thank you for coming.